Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Mohammed, how are you?
I'm
Calling
good.
to order.
Good.
Calling to order the regular meeting of the Wheeling Plan Commission for Wednesday, January 13th, 2021. Please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, and justice for all. Mr. Secretary, could you call the roll, please?
Okay, Commissioner Belanova.
Here.
Commissioner Berkey.
Here.
Commissioner Sprague is here. Commissioner Yednak.
Present.
Commissioner Thompson.
We've not seen her yet.
All right, Commissioner Malik.
Here.
Chairman Johnson.
Here.
Chairman Johnson.
Here. Sorry. All right.
I just promoted Commissioner Thompson. She just joined.
Okay. We'll wait for her to get switched over. There she is.
Sorry, technical difficulties.
Understand. Ms. Nyes, any changes to the agenda?
No changes.
And we've had no citizens' concerns and comments?
No.
We have no consent items. So we'll move right to our items for review, which is a concept review for Wheeling Workforce Housing at 231 Wheeling Road. Marcy, have anything on this before we start?
No, I think we can just let them go ahead.
All right. This is a concept review only, so they're basically asking for our opinion on what their proposal is. We are not voting on it at the end, just giving them some insight on what we would like to see. So with that said, just out of curiosity, how many of the commissioners had a chance to watch the presentation that they gave to the board? 1, 2, 3.
Okay, great.
So you know where to start. We've got some background. All right, so please introduce yourself.
Josh, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. I'm glad to hear that everyone heard the presentation. Unfortunately, we only have one episode to go with. Go with the similar episode to the original presentation. So Sig and I are gonna go back and forth on the presentation and turn it over to each other at different points in time. But I'm gonna start out. Good evening. My name is Josh Hafron, and I'm here with Stig Strutmanis. We're both partners with General Capital. I've been with the firm for 13 plus years, and I think Sig is approaching 20 plus years with the firm. First, I want to thank you for allowing us to present our project, the Wheeling Workforce Apartments at 231 Wheeling Road tonight. And I also want to thank village staff who have worked on the project with us to date. Ross and his team have been great to work with and also extremely helpful in helping us understand what the community desires at that site. Although this is our first formal presentation to the Planning Commission on the project, there has been a great deal of activity surrounding the project already. Just to recap briefly, in late December, as you mentioned earlier, we presented the project to the village Board of Trustees for a concept review. The Illinois Housing and Development Authority Board at their December meeting approved the transfer of the housing tax credits for the project to this site at 231 Wheeling Road. It's important to note that these types of projects, workforce housing projects, affordable housing projects, the approval and cooperation of federal, state, and local governments. To already have the credits for a project is critical and somewhat unusual. And it eliminates the need of us all having to wait around to see if the project is going to receive a credit award in order to move forward. We're here tonight to present our schematic plans in preparation for submitting a full PUD package. As I mentioned before, progress has been made, and we have already invested significant dollars into the project, including the securing the credits with a $150,000 non-refundable deposit to IDA. At this point, I'd like to turn it over to take a step back and turn it over to SIG to present the site.
And Marcy, are you able to pull up our presentation? We don't really have the ability to do that. There you go. And we wanted to go back. There's an overview of the site itself in the beginning of the presentation. Is that still there, Marcy? Or the first couple of slides.
This was the presentation I pulled from the last
From last
one.
time? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll just take it in the order that you have it. Hey, Josh, so what we'll do is we're going to hand it back so that Josh can talk a little bit about General Capital and our background and a little bit about the characteristics of the project. And then I'll hit the details of the site and of the design.
Sure, sounds good. General Capital, principals of General Capital, including SIG and myself, will be the owners and the developers and the owners of this project for at least the next 15 years. And as a result, we'll be a part of the Wheeling community for years to come. So I think it's important that you know a little bit about us. Since we'll be, hopefully longtime members of the community going forward. And so this first slide here describes a bit about General Capital. And we're a real estate development and investment group out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I'm in our Chicago office in Northbrook, and SIG works out of the Milwaukee office during non-pandemic times, but he's working remotely now as we speak. Little history behind the company. The company was founded by two brothers, Michael and David Weiss, in the mid-90s. The two brothers, Michael and David, still lead the group and head us up. We're a lean company with 23 employees who have different backgrounds from accounting to finance to construction. SIG and I focus almost exclusively on the residential side of the business. We have two sides to the business. One we classify as commercial development and the other being residential. We're very active in both aspects of the business today. And, just as a measure of that activeness, we've completed 35 housing transactions similar to the one we're proposing in Wheeling. We've completed these transactions in Michigan, Illinois, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. Currently, we have 5 of these projects under construction and are in the process of closing 3 transactions that have already received credit awards, including this one. The next slide, if we can move, Marcy, please, is no worries. Yeah, so this slide is a slide with some photos from our Beer Line B project in downtown Milwaukee. This is a 140-unit building we built along the Milwaukee River, which was completed in 2012. I bring up this project to point out a couple things. This project is located in one of the highest rent districts in Milwaukee along the river, as I mentioned. And the commonality between this and the Wheeling Workforce project is that this project is indistinguishable from the market rate projects that line the river, although this is a workforce housing project. We have the other commonality between this project. Another commonality between this project and the Wheeling Workforce project is the mixed income nature of this project. There are tenants in this building paying $1,800 in rent, living next door to tenants paying $400 in rent, and both tenants enjoy the common areas of the building, which include a gym, cafeteria or coffee area to do work, a business center, and they all enjoy the great location of the project. Next, if we can move one more slide ahead, Marcy, I want to talk about the potential demand for this type of housing in Wheeling. And when we commissioned a third-party market study analysis of our project, and this was done by Valerie Kretschmer out of and Associates out of Evanston, Illinois. The numbers that I'm going to talk about now are from that study. But what this slide is indicating to you is that we're going to have tenants living in the building making up to 80% of the area median income. So what that means is for a family of 5 living in a 3-bedroom apartment in the building, that family can earn up to about $77,000 a year and still be income qualified to live in the building. So, and you can also see we'll also have units at 30% AMI and 60% AMI. If we can move to the next slide, Marcy, please. There you go. So this is from the study, and you'll see that based on the study, there are 14,783 households in Wheeling. And of those households, 8,229 make less than $75,000 a year as a household. So percentage-wise, this translates into about 55% of Wheeling's households being eligible to live in the building. The study was very positive, very bullish on it. One way that one indication of the bullishness or the positivity in the study is that the study projected that the building, once completed, will lease up in 2 to 3 months. We think, based on the demand we're seeing here, that it will lease up quicker than that. Our goal is always to open up full or be pre-leased full and move people in, within the first month, now in a COVID-friendly way. But we think we'll be able to be full within a month. So now, Marcy, if we could go to the next slide, which might be a surprise. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to turn this back over to Sig, this part of the presentation talks about the building design and programming.
Good, thanks. I think everyone is familiar with the location generally on Wheeling Road there at Catherine Court. Basically, the site is about 1/3 of a mile south of Dundee, and it's directly across the directly across the tracks from One Wheeling Town Center. So basically, it's considered a TOD, or a transit-oriented development location. That's what the zoning also supports in this MXT zoning district. So from that perspective, the site itself is in a great location. We love it for what we have in mind. And we also feel that while the zoning and your master plan look at this area in long-term transition, basically all the way up the Dundee Road, we like the site as it is right now. We think the adjacencies are perfectly fine right now, including some nice flex space directly across the street to the north. We've got some open space to the south, and we're kind of insulated from the industrial that's farther to the south. So we really think it's a nice pocket. It's kind of the south end of that pocket that we'd call the transit-oriented development piece that's associated with the metro station. So from that perspective, we really think it's great. So in more detail, we're talking about a single building, 4-story, 53-unit building. It will be built to village standards, which basically means, I'm sure you're very familiar with this, but basically you require type 2 construction, which is an all-metal, non-combustible building type. It's an expensive building type, but it's also a very safe building type. And so what you have in front of you tonight is built to the village requirements. And as Josh mentioned, on the third bullet point here, talking about the surroundings and how our project fits into the other stuff happening down at the town center, we really think it's a nice complement to the higher end residential happening down there. As Josh mentioned, we have some income restrictions, but we're intended to serve that middle market. We call it the missing middle market of housing, and there is tremendous demand for that. And as Josh also mentioned, we're also very comfortable being in the high rent district, being good neighbors to higher end residential, and we fit in very comfortably because we really find ourselves not being differentiated at all from market rate product in terms of how we look, how we live, how our units feel, things like that. And then, you know, moving on, one of the signature elements of all of our properties is we like to create a sense of community. And we focus on creating spaces, gathering places where our residents can network, meet friends. We have activities and things like that where typically we will start programming in our properties, but in very short order, our residents take it over. So basically, we create the environment for community through networking lounges, Wi-Fi cafes, things like that, and then really our residents take over. And that's been an awesome thing for us because basically it's great for resident retention. They like living in our properties, and it's great for us because we keep residents longer by having these kind of active communities. So that's one of the things that you're going to see in this project as well. And then another thing that we do on every single one of our projects is we seek some type of third-party sustainability certification. In this case, it's going to be a LEED certified building, third-party certified, so you're going to see some high-tech mechanicals, high-tech, I'll call it water-saving plumbing fixtures, things like that. So together we have to score enough points into the LEED criteria to be certified, and so we're proud of that. All of our projects are certified under some third-party designation. And then finally, what you're going to see tonight is actually responsive to a couple of rounds with village staff already. Some of the building design elements and the site planning elements have all been kind of through that initial sieve before we brought it to you. So we're hoping that you'll like what you see and it reflects a direction that we can all move forward with. So next slide, please, Marcy. We're just going to breeze through these. This is the site. You can see basically on this slide you can see it's really the three parcels. You can see where the dot is, but it's all that gray area that goes all the way down to the drainage ditch on the south end of the property. You can see Heritage Park all the way down to the south there. That drainage ditch is actually what we're using to conduct our stormwater over to the regional network. And then you'll see on the east side of the property is Heritage Park. And then you'll see a little white crossing over the tracks that's just north of our property. Right there, there's an at-grade pedestrian crossing that lets our residents go over to One Wheeling Town Center and to all the nice stuff that's happening on that side of the tracks. And also the property that's directly north of us is also in transition, currently vacant, and we're hoping that will also positively redevelop, and we'll work with both the village and the future developer to create some kind of a strong pedestrian connection that goes directly up to the metro station. So that kind of gives you the overall, the high altitude look at the site. The next slide, please. We mentioned the site itself is vacant now. It used to be the Orange Crush site, an asphalt site, and we just got our phase 1 environmental study back. We knew that there's some hidden gems on this property, and we're actually in the process now of doing our phase 2 investigation. We're going to be out there in the next couple of weeks doing some GPR, which is basically probing the site for any hidden anomalies, tanks, things like that. So basically we're underway with that investigation. We have our eyes wide open to that, but I just wanted to say that we recognize that we also think that there's a pretty easy path to getting approval to be able to do residential development on this former brownfield. Next slide, please, Marcy. And I mentioned this earlier, but some of the adjacencies that, again, we're comfortable with now. You have the flex building on the upper left there, and then as you head to the south around the curve, you'll see that there's some industrial that's around the bend on Wheeling, but at the same time, we're not directly next to it. And also those high tension wires that people would be typically concerned about are actually on the west side of our property, and then they cross over the road on the south end of our property. So they're actually never really directly near our project, so we're very comfortable with that. And the bottom two slides, basically on the right-hand side, you can see those high tension wires. They're across the street from us, so they really don't impact us. On the left-hand side, kind of looking across our site over to One Wheeling Town Center, you can see that we have some great adjacencies to some really nice projects. Next slide, please. And then here, not to go into any detail on these particular images, but basically here again, just emphasizing that over the long term, we think that being next to the metro station, being next to these amenities is really great to emphasize the transit-oriented nature of the project. And next slide, I believe, should be our site plan. So basically the site plan here, you can see the entire parcel. You have to kind of orient with north on the left-hand side. And then so basically north is to the left. There's Catherine Court, which is north of us. And the project, we situated on the north end of the property to be as close to the station as possible. But then also what that allowed us to do is put the parking basically behind the building toward the track side. So if you look at how the site is laid out, we have two access points. One is on Wheeling Road, one is off of Catherine Court. The village is going to want to look at those specific locations. When we bring our PUD in, we'll actually be looking at exactly where those alignments should go. We've hired a traffic engineer to help us locate those, that they're safe and that they're the right distances and sight distances, things like that. So at any rate, there will be two access points. Exactly where they go, we'll get into that. The village also requires that there is an access drive around the entire building. You'll see that the way that we laid it out. And as I mentioned, the parking here, we have 106 parking spaces, but half of them are supposed to be covered or underground. So the spaces that are closest to the tracks are in carports. So half of the parking spaces have carports, and those also further buffer the building from the tracks with those carports on that side of the building. I guess just a note about the landscaping plan. It looks very schematic on this diagrammatic site plan, but we intend to include a lot of landscaping, including a hardscape pedestrian plaza that you see that round element directly near the entrance there. So there's hardscape and softscape elements. On the south end of the building, we added some bike racks and a small fenced-in play area for our residents. So basically, we're going to add some on-site amenities. And on the far south end of the site, you see our stormwater detention basin, which right now has been schematically sized to accommodate our stormwater. So that's the right size for it. We're working with Manhard Consulting to work on that. And that's going to discharge to the drainage ditch that's, again, south of us that goes under the tracks. Exactly. Thanks for pointing that, doing the pointing there. Let's see. A last couple of things about the building and the orientation of the building and kind of how we sited it. The main residential entry and the leasing office and the community spaces are on the ground floor that face the street. So basically the short end of the building, it's not helping, I'm sitting here pointing at the diagram, you can't see that, but where Marcy is pointing, that whole ground floor that's closest to the street is all our community spaces and our leasing office. And so it has a very, I'll call it commercial in nature, storefront glass, things like that, high open spaces that face the street. The building, as I mentioned, is 4 stories tall. It's slab on grade, and basically it's light gauge steel construction, type 2 light gauge steel construction. And then I'll go on to the last few slides we have. Marcy, the next slide. Architecturally, Hooker de Young, our architects, they took direction and cues from village staff on differentiating the architecture from our project from One Wheeling Town Center. So how do we differentiate this, make it a little more interesting? And what we did is we used what we call kind of a Midwestern, I know it sounds like a stretch, but kind of a farmhouse aesthetic on these elements that you can see, these 12-12 pitch elements that basically have vertical board and batten siding. There's black windows and standing seam roofing on those elements. So kind of we have these engaged 12-12 elements in the primary mass of the building. And so the overall impression then is, again, to break down the scale and to have a combination of this architectural style with more of a masonry building. Our intent here is to create 4-sided architecture. So every side has these elements. There's no back side to the building, which I think is important to everyone. And we understand that, and we've designed for that. Just a word about the units themselves on the interior. We use real open floor plans, contemporary design, contemporary open floor plans. We use high-quality vinyl wood plank flooring. So we have hard surface flooring, which is all the trend right now. Our bedrooms are carpeted. We use sustainably harvested cabinets. And I mentioned the LEED certification, so all of our fixtures and all the electrical stuff, the light fixtures are all high efficiency LED. Basically, I'll call them, cutting edge technology stuff. The units will be from 700 to 900 square feet, and then for the 3 bedrooms, upwards of 1,200 square feet on the largest units, and half of the units are 3 bedrooms in the building. And then the next slide, Marcy, these are the last couple of slides we have for you. They just show 3D renderings of the design intent. And there again, you can see that 12-12 pitch element, that's the primary entrance piece on the left-hand side there. And on the lower floor, it's a little tough to see in this slide, but that's all storefront glass. It's below that element. And so you have kind of a strong, very transparent ground floor at that hard corner. And then the last slide is showing how we kind of contrast the 12-12 pitch element with the flat kind of parapeted major mass of the building. It's on the left part of the slide. So that's the direction. We've started, just to kind of bring you up to speed, we started the PUD documents. We're working with Manhard, working with your village staff and the engineers to put together the detailed PUD submittal that we hope to get in front of your staff by the middle of February, which hopefully will put us into the March approval cycle for the PUD. So we'll be seeing a lot more detail. All the things that you require in a detailed PUD submittal will be coming in the next couple of months. And so with that, we got some great feedback from the village board before Christmas, and we're really encouraged, and we'd love to hear what you have to say, and we'd love to take some direction from the Plan Commission as we keep kind of taking the next steps with our design. So we appreciate the time tonight.
All right, thank you. All right, we'll go to the commissioners. Let's start with Commissioner Thompson.
Thank you. My first question is about how the credit in the background are going to be handled, since some of these are going to be geared toward lower income individuals. Is there a minimum credit score that you guys typically work with? And background, well, I know with backgrounds there's laws in place for that, but anything that you can provide us with that?
Sure, Josh, do you want to handle that?
Sure.
And I can chime in. Sure.
Sure. I'll give you some details, but I think the overarching theme that we're trying to express or display is that this building will be no different than a market rate deal. So we do have minimum credit scores. We have criminal and landlord checks the same way any other apartment building in Wheeling would have. We use a third-party property management firm. We don't manage the building ourselves. We use a group out of Madison called Oakbrook Corporation. They manage probably around 8,000 units in Illinois and Wisconsin. They manage probably 12 assets for us. And they are the face of the management, and they screen tenants in the exact same way any building would screen tenants.
Okay, so there's no nothing that you know of that's the reason why I ask is there's quite a bit of need out there for affordable housing for a lot of people, and when you're in the lower income, some bills are just hard to pay at times, and their credit's affected. So it's as a real estate agent, I constantly find that although people have had issues in the past, they're working on rebuilding and are just needing a place to be able to land. So I'm hoping that there's a little bit more flexibility or understanding when taking a look at previous. I know that some landlords take a look at what it actually was the situation and not just the number.
Yeah, and the screening process. And I can't give you a credit score number, but the screening process is Oakbrook puts it, takes all the information and puts it out to a third party, and there's some definite X's where people are going to be vote out immediately for egregious crimes, but whether or not a tenant gets in is I don't want to say black box, but many factors go into it, including landlord verifications, the credit score, bill payment. So it's not just one thing and you're out. A variety of factors and characteristics of the tenant are evaluated through this system.
And,
Okay.
and I'll just chime in there just for 1 second. That also, we have to be super careful to give equal treatment to every single potential applicant, right? So basically, these properties are especially highly scrutinized because they go through compliance. So basically, each file is reviewed, and let's say if somebody misses the mark somewhere, we have to be very cautious to make exceptions. So that protects everyone, but at the same time, it can be a little frustrating. Okay, but it has to be fair, right? It has to be consistent.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of one of the things that we always kind of juggle is like, we can set the credit score, but if we set it at X, then we have to live with that. That kind of thing.
Right, that's where I was trying to kind of get an idea from some of the landlords that I worked with in the past. There is, and even being a landlord myself, I totally understand that, and you don't want to have any discrimination issues by any means. But it's there's also a few different layers that can be put into place so that if they do have a credit score that falls under such and such, that they provide these other additional things that will help the approval process. Because again, people that have gone through hard times will always remain in hard times. If the credit score is always the thing that is they're going to be carrying that around with them. So
Understood.
And then for the management and maintenance, I know you have the other company, but do you have somebody that's going to be there at regular hours?
Yes. So basically what we do is, as Josh was saying, we hire Oakbrook. They're the property manager. They're going to have a structure that's got a regional property manager and compliance that's back at the home base. But we'll hire actually an on-site property manager, probably very locally. We really encourage Oakbrook to find somebody that's local, who understands the market, who understands wheeling. And really, Josh, I'd say the majority of the time, our property managers who are on site are from the communities where we have the project. And similarly, maintenance as well. There's kind of the 24/7 maintenance hotline that's part of the bigger network. But we like to have maintenance people who are nearby, so that if something happens, they can be there, in a few minutes. So it tends to be a very local at the property level, but it's supported by this larger structure.
Okay. My other question was about the parking spaces. Are they all going to be assigned spots, or are they? Is it kind of a free for all?
Well, it's a little bit of both. Everyone will be guaranteed a parking space on the surface lot. So basically, if there's issues, we will assign that parking, but there's definitely enough room for everybody to have a spot. We usually do some kind of a little sticker on the rearview mirror that says that you're a resident if the parking isn't assigned. And then there's a handful of spaces that are for visitors and just for, kind of the flow of traffic, typical daily flow of parking. And then the pieces that are assigned very specifically are the carports in back. So they're basically, somebody has space number 22, then they will be, that is their parking spot.
Okay. Even if they do have that one single parking spot, I assume that you'll probably have something in place that if it's apparent that that's actually just a broken down vehicle in that one spot, and then they're using the other spots, I guess you would have different tags and stuff like that to know
Yeah.
If
That's
they're,
a, you know,
because if they have visitors and things like that.
yeah, I mean, the broken down vehicle thing is something that we do watch for. I mean, if there's a flat tire or something, it's a management issue, right? And just like anywhere, it's like you don't want to have a crappy car be sitting there. It doesn't look good, and it's not useful. So our managers typically look out for that. And if somebody wants to park their car in the carport because they're paying, for the extra carport, okay. But I think that in the honest, in the general parking, in the free parking, we do take care to make sure that nothing like that, sits there for a long time.
Okay. And then my other question is just about the local real estate agents. Do you work with local real estate agents if they have clients and things like that and they bring them to your company? Is that something, do you work with the local real estate agents to help place different people?
I mean, so the answer is that this is it's a rental community, right? So basically, we will have things. I mean, in this case, there's a lot of demand already. We think that it's basically going to, attract enough attention and kind of fill itself, so to speak. So I'm not sure exactly how we'd work with a local real estate agent, like a feeder network or something like that, or have referrals, things like that. But we've done things like referrals, being able to pay for referrals and things like that. But it's really, just to be very honest about it, it's when you struggle a little bit on the lease up where you need third parties, to help you lease the property. And in this case, I think there's gonna be a lot of demand. But I mean, if there's some unique structure we can put in place, we'd look at that.
Yeah, I just know for like Lake House that's off of Wheeling Road, and then even the new ones at the town center. What they do is they do work with the local real estate agents, and if agents have people that they're working with and they're trying to place them, or we have like I have relocation services that call me for people that are moving from out here from out of state. Then we sit there and try to hunt down different places, and what they typically provide is half the first month's rent or something like that to the agent that helped place them into the so just curious on that, just because there's a lot that local real estate agents would be interested to know.
Commissioner Thompson, if I may, we need to get back to what we're here for tonight, and we're not really helping them lease the property at this point. We want to see if we can let them build the property.
Okay, yeah, no, that's fine. These are just things that were on my mind as we were going
Understood.
through them. But that's really all I had. I was kind of curious.
Okay, Commissioner Yednick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, gentlemen. Can you guys hear me okay?
We
Yes.
sure can.
Okay, thank you. Couple of questions. I know when I watched The Village, they were hoping that you guys were going to research some other names. Is that still open, or are we going to be workforce? I mean, when I thought more about it, their objection, workforce, it kind of implies is like, this is where we're going to put all our maids and gardeners, and we want to be more open. That these are citizens and residents of Wheeling, not the staff. So still working on that.
We are, and frankly, if anybody has any good ideas, we'd be open to them. And I say that in all seriousness because a lot of times, the names are something that's locally significant or authentic, or some founding person or something, or association with the property. So if anybody has any good ideas, we're totally open to that. But honestly,
Just
we're still looking at it.
I guess the staff. I can't think off the top of my head, but I remember when we did our new station area plan and we were looking at with the consultants, they talked about trying to bring in site historical. Now, I don't know, you don't want to call it Orange Crush Apartments, but something that may reflect that area. I heard there used to be a horse plant there, or maybe
Yeah, it was some kind of a horse
able or
farm,
something.
yeah.
So I don't know. So anyway, I'm glad you're still working on it. I don't have a clever suggestion at this moment. I noticed in your documents and your submittals, you said that the reason that you have some of the government funding that you have is because you were working on a different site and that deal fell through. Is that something that we need to be concerned about with this? Is there, I mean, I'm just curious why that deal fell through, and do we have any danger with this deal?
No.
Yeah, no, we don't have danger of that. On the front end, to put it very, in very kind of general terms, this site has the zoning in place. We're going through a PUD process to really approve the site plan, and the PUD is required because it's 2 acres. It's larger than 2 acres. That's why we have to go through the PUD. On the other site that we're looking at, it was a little more tricky, quite honestly. There was a master plan change and a zoning change that needed to happen, and in the end, it seemed like something that wasn't gaining traction. And when we spoke to Ida about it and where we were, we kind of went through the process of, would you be willing to look at another site that we may be able to get this done more smoothly? And they said yes.
Sig, sorry to cut you off,
Yes.
but this is concept for this project on this site. We shouldn't be talking about other sites. So let's get back to big picture focus on this project. We don't need to talk about other projects.
I was thinking from terms of the risk to the project. Okay.
Totally irrelevant.
All right. Well then,
We're
this
talking
is-
about land use and development concerns or questions.
Okay. All right, maybe this one, tell me if this one counts or not. I noticed that staff had some concerns about the track crossing, and I know that the gentlemen or the developers are kind of counting on the track crossing at the station. But I was out at the site last week, and I could see that there was concern is that in order to get from there, I'm guessing that people are going to be cutting through the parking lots of the commercial condos. If they're going to do that, they're not going to probably go all the way out to the sidewalk, walk down to the street, and then go to the track crossing. I'm just wondering, a couple of questions, why staff had a concern is counting that as a track crossing, and then also from the developers, you said that you would try to work with whoever develops that other property, but even at that, you would still need to make a continuation through some of the commercial condos. I mean, have you approached any of those folks to see about the pathways, the pedestrian pathways?
Sure. I can address that second piece first, and that is we have not approached the commercial condos that are west of the vacant property. We believe that long-term, the key is going to be to get a pedestrian connection on that vacant property, and that's kind of what we're focused on. We don't have complete clarity about exactly how that will happen, but it's something that the village is also looking at long-term. And so that's really what the focus is to get it, kind of a new pedestrian connection, almost a promenade connection that goes all the way up to through the parking lot.
Did that connect all the way to the station parking lot then?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
all right. I didn't see that when I was out there. Okay, but then
It will. It's not there now. It will. Sorry.
I guess staff expressed some concerns about using so Marcy, can you share with us why staff would be concerned about if they were to get a pedestrian access through that other property still being used, the grade crossing at the station? Is that a concern?
Is it a
Marcy?
concern to them to use the at-grade crossing?
No, in the notes, I got the impression that staff expressed a concern about counting the grade crossing at the station as the track crossing, and it seemed to me that staff was pushing for some kind of an overhead crossing or something like that. And I know in your letters and the presentation of Village, you said that was cost prohibitive, and I can understand that. So I'm just wondering, Marcy, is staff really pushing against the fact that they want to count the grade crossing at the train station?
No, it needs to be looked into in greater detail. This is just very preliminary at this point. We
Okay.
don't know what's going in on that north property. It's just something that we all need to work together to figure out what the best scenario is. There's so many factors involved.
Right, and I guess folks could always go to the sidewalk, which brings me to another question I was going to ask. Are you guys planning on putting in a a sidewalk at the front of the property along Wheeling Road? Is that part of the plan?
The answer is yes. Now, the unique piece of that is once it gets up to Catherine Court, that's awesome because basically there's pedestrian, network up to the north. But basically at the south end of our property, it ends. So basically, we're going to do our part to have a sidewalk along our property because the idea is that over the long term that pedestrian connection and that network's going to go to the south.
Yeah, I think for the time being, most folks probably wouldn't walk south because it's all industrial that way. They would want to be going towards Dundee and the train station then. Then I think staff had a concern about counting access through Catherine Court, and I didn't quite understand that because I went out and took a look at it. But I was wondering what kind of approvals would be required to actually, do a curb cut through Catherine Court so you could have a driveway. And Marcy, is there, what was staff's concern about using Catherine Court as an entrance?
Just the proximity of tying into a cul-de-sac right adjacent to the exit from Catherine Court to Wheeling Road.
Okay. I didn't look to me, but would there be, since it looks like you'd have to encroach on part of property that's not owned by you, is that a challenge just from your prior experience? Is that just a matter of getting, what's the word? I can't think of it off the top of my head, leeway or?
Like an easement?
Yeah,
Easement,
they'd have to get
that's the word. That's the word I'm
access
looking for.
easements and stuff.
If we went to the north, but right now the access point that we're showing to Catherine Court is coming off of our property and is within our property boundaries, hitting the right of way. So right now we don't need one, but if we were to go farther north and somehow swing it from the north down, then that would require some kind of an easement.
Okay. Then talking about the design, parking, I'll go, and then I'll come back to the building design. You said that the covered parking, are you going to have like two classes of citizen? I counted up the number of spots that you currently have, and you said you got 53 units. It almost seems like each unit could get an allocated covered parking, but is it going to just be based on buying or renting the covered parking separately? And so aren't you creating two classes of residents?
Well, we view these things as basically as nice to haves. Okay, so it's kind of like there's certain things like the laundry, for example, that cost to maintain the commercial laundry units and things like that. So people pay for laundry. We look at it the same way that there's an investment in the actual structure for the covered parking. So therefore, just like underground parking and any other project, you pay a little extra for the amenity of having the covered parking. But it's not intended, and we don't really experience it that all of a sudden there's kind of like a, two levels or, kind of a, we don't really see that. We just see it as more like you pay for the extra amenity.
My concern, though, is there was a presentation a while ago where somebody was talking about another project. There was a condo development across from some the property that we were evaluating. They were talking about the problem they had because it sounds like what you're going to have if people don't rent the covered parking, then they're just going to have a resident sticker and it's going to be open parking. It's not going to be assigned parking. And nowadays, it seems like households have 4, 5, 6 cars. It's crazy. And so if the people that are going to have the financial means to rent out all the covered spots, what about the rest of your residents that aren't going to have the financial means? Are they going to be really scrambling or getting violation notices because they're parking in the guest spots because there's no spots left available? I'm just wondering, when you get to the point where you say you're going to have at least one spot per unit, are they going to be assigned spots to make sure that every unit that would have a vehicle can park it?
Yeah, and actually, this, again, is stuff that we're going to be dealing with at the staff level. That these are not things that we need to be getting into the weeds with now. Remember, this is all coming back to when it comes to the PUD. We're just looking at land development, big picture items. What do you guys think about the use? What do you guys think about the overall look? We don't need to talk about parking spaces, parking stickers, things like that. The staff hasn't even looked at even if there's enough parking yet. It's just way too early, just concept review.
Well, I thought one of the, then I'll just say why I'm asking some of these questions. I thought one of our objectives when we do concept review is just to let them know some of the things we're thinking about or that they may have to address in the future. So I'll leave it at that. Then the last thing, then I guess, hopefully this is building design. You did mention laundry. I did see only one laundry room. I'm concerned with that, but I think Marcy's going to shut me down if I talk about the laundry room, so I won't bring that up. But balconies, you weren't putting that into your design. Was that a conscious decision to not provide balconies or patio walkways?
Yeah, at this point, it is, and basically it's twofold. One is that we are right at the upper threshold, the cost threshold that's allowable on a building per square foot, per unit, et cetera, under IDA's program. So basically those balconies, especially with type 2 construction, become extremely expensive. So
Okay.
that's the one reason. The other reason is there's a management side to this. Balconies are really nice, but they're also for us at least a source of additional management. People put stuff on balconies. People, so we're fine without them. We're going to rent them perfectly fine without them. So we're comfortable with it.
I'm the president of my condo association. I have that issue.
You can relate.
I can relate, but so far, knock on wood, our residents are pretty good about not storing bicycles and trash cans and ladders and all kinds of stuff. That's all I had then, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for the time.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Malik.
My concerns were with parking, but I guess we don't talk about that right now. So overall, I like the concept and idea. So I have no further questions. Thank you.
Okay.
Well,
Commissioner.
let me,
Go ahead.
Chairman Johnson, can I clarify? As far as parking, to just point out a distinction, just really quick, is that Commissioner Yudnik, it was perfectly, good to make a point about parking, but then getting into minutia about specific, like, parking stickers and operational concerns is where it started to go into the weeds. So Commissioner Malik, if you have an overall concern about parking that you'd like them to look at and make sure that they address when coming back for a PUD, that's fine. But then it's just when we start taking it a couple steps further into the details. So that's just as a distinction. So I would welcome you to share any concern you might have to have them look at.
Okay. Yeah, so I was just concerned with the fact that you have 53 units, and so you have enough spots for, if there was 2 cars per unit, and you're talking about 50% of your units are 3-bedroom plus, and knowing family, there's about 2 teenagers and their mum, that's 3 cars already. So I just feel like the spacing doesn't seem to add up, and that'd definitely be something that I would want to see maybe adjusted in the future. And then just the other concern was that bend that comes from the south of Wheeling, and your exit is pretty close to that. I know you talked about the traffic teams going to be looking at that for you, but that was just another concern that seemed like I don't know what the visibility is like that. I can't quite remember, but it did seem like that personally that was a concern for me as well. But those are my 2 concerns. But the idea of affordable housing, the concept, the look, I like that. That was pretty good. So yeah, those are my
Good, thank you.
questions and concerns.
Commissioner Blanova. Oh, you're on mute.
This if we consider this building as a part of a walkable downtown area, maybe it would make sense to bring the building closer to the road to make it look like a downtown area. That way, it will give you a little more room to add things with different things in that complex. I don't think it would be a good idea to put any dog walking area, but maybe barbecue place. Something like that. But it will give you more room. So the same thing with the parking. But of course, the big concern is how it's going to transition to on the other side to walk, so the residents can walk on the other side. That's of course I want to see more ideas how it's going to be. But other than that, I don't think it's a problem. It's going to be a residential area or building. I don't see a problem here.
Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Berkey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First off, love the concept. I like the appearance as I saw it in the renderings. I would echo one comment that was made by Trustee Lang at the meeting or the board meeting that it'd be good to have the whole thing look the same all the way around. The front and back would be, the back be as attractive as the front, since people going by on the train will see the back. The only questions I had, one was, I know it was mentioned there was going to be fencing that would separate the railroad tracks from the property. Is there any specifics on the height of that fencing and how far that will extend to?
Yeah. Basically, we have an assumption right now. We have not gotten it approved. That's what we're going to go through in this PUD process. But basically, it'll be on the entire, the length of the east side of the property, basically where we hit the north property, all the way down to the drainage ditch, essentially, the extent of our property. And as far as the height of it, we're hoping that it's a 6-foot fence. Basically, that this makes it a real obstacle. And we also will be planting right up against it. So hopefully it'll be a combination of, dense vegetation and fencing, when all is said and done. But the design of that, we're going to be bringing that forward through the PUD. And the height, Marcy, I don't know if you know offhand the height that we can do.
Yeah,
if we
6
can do a
feet.
6, but 6 feet is kind of a standard.
Yeah.
So we, that's probably what we're doing.
Yep.
Okay, great. And then the only other thing is the fenced play lot. What type of surface are you planning for that?
It's probably wood chips, honestly. We've looked at other surfaces, but that happens to just be the most maintainable, and it's, we can freshen it up each year. That's what we typically do.
Okay. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Commissioner Sprague.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sig, Josh, welcome to Wheeling.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I thank you for your presentation. I think the concept is very attractive. I'd like to address a couple things that are drawn up as concepts in our comprehensive plan for the station area. They have been touched on briefly by some of the other commissioners, but I would like to also mention, first one would be about additional pedestrian crossings for the railroad track. It is mentioned in there on more than one page, either a at grade or underpass into the east side of the tracks in that area where you're planning on building this. I don't know if you could consider that once again or more. I know you did mention that you wanted to try and make a connection from your property all the way to the train station, but I just wanted to mention that the comprehensive plan does suggest additional crossings. The other thing too is, I don't know if it's feasible, but if there could be maybe some kind of collaboration with the Park District, I'm sure they would like access into their area also. I don't know if that's possible, but it might be something that you could look into. The other thing with the comprehensive plan, Commissioner Belanova touched on this. Concepts for that are for street forward buildings. I don't know if you've considered moving your building towards the road more and maybe eliminating all the parking in the front of it, but that's another thing that the comprehensive plan kind of addresses as a concept. The only other thing I have is that exit onto Catherine Court. Did you consider moving your exit so that it goes straight out to Wheeling Road on the north side there, and then just having two entrance exits, from Wheeling Road?
Yeah, we certainly could. My personal concern there was then that access point would be too close to Catherine Court.
Yeah.
In other words, like what's a separation distance? If it's 300 feet, okay, you got 300, I'm not even sure we fit it. So that was my concern. We want to work with the village and the staff to understand exactly what the concern is with Catherine Court and with our traffic engineer. But I mean, we kind of thought that coming onto Catherine Court and directing traffic to an intersection, that was a positive thing. But we're open to anything. I know that just generally speaking, the village requires 2 access points. That's a fire department requirement. So basically, if one gets blocked, you can get in the other, and then you you got to go around the whole building with your fire lane. So other than that, we're totally flexible. Whatever makes sense. And is safe, right?
Right. Definitely safety first. All right, yeah, I don't know, maybe you could work with staff with that then, as far as whether they would prefer you to use Catherine Court or come out separately.
We will.
And that's all I have. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. All right, that leaves me, and I think most of mine have been covered. Definitely need to see a focus on keeping kids off the tracks. So, and something attractive from the trackside. I had some questions on floor plans, but we won't get into that until you come back. And of course, the name change too. So we'll put our heads together, see if we can come up with some ideas for you.
And we'll try to come up with something before we submit to. We've got some, we've been toying around with it, but if you do have any ideas, we'd really welcome them, seriously.
Okay. Anyone else have any other questions? All right, I hope you guys got some input that you can use out of this, and we'll be seeing you soon.
Sounds great, thank you. We will take all this into account. The one thing, and I don't want to belabor this point or extend the meeting here, but I just have a more specific question about the street forward thing. And I come from a background where I like, traditional neighborhood development, new urbanist, generally as an approach to urban design, new urbanist, zero setback closer to the street. In this case, we were concerned with having the building too close to a really busy street noise, things like that. We ended up having, we pushed it forward so it has a presence on the street, but I'm wondering, how we do that and maintain, the drive aisles and things like that. How strongly do you feel about that? If we could just talk about that for 2 minutes, because that's a major design change for us. I just want to understand, if we pull up this, I don't know if it's appropriate to pull up the site plan, but that's kind of some direction that I'm hearing that's actually, that would be a game changer. I'd have to really look at that carefully. We can shift the building, we can extrude it, things like that, but to bring that and kind of do a flip scheme where all of a sudden I've got a double bay, 120 feet of parking on the backside, and that building is right up against Wheeling Road.
Well, I'll throw in, from my point of view, I think you've got the right idea here. You've got a buffer from the tracks, you got a buffer from Wheeling Road. I think it's a good use of the site.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a comment?
Absolutely, sir.
Yeah, this is Robert. I kind of agree with what the chairman just said. I think the street forward makes a lot of sense if your first floor was retail or food or something. But in this situation, I agree with the petitioner that they're bringing some of the building forward. They're presenting the amenities and the walkway, the circular walkway in front, but personally, I wouldn't want to have an apartment that was right up on the street, unless I was a couple of rows up. So your first floor apartments would suffer being right on the street. And they got a little, like you said, they got a buffer and some landscaping in front as opposed to being there. So I agree that I don't think it's necessary to change the whole design personally.
Anyone else?
Well, if you okay with that.
I'm in agreement as well. I like the design, and it's, especially with that curve, I think having the buffer is important.
Commissioner Blanova, you were saying?
Thank you. Yes, the reason why I mentioned that because this building will is a start because on the intersection of Wheeling Road and Daisy, there is another empty lot, and if we were talking about it, not last year, the year before that we would like to see something buildings closer to the road, so it will kind of be like a downtown area. So that's why this building will be as a start, and if we consider this concept as a downtown walkable area, that's why we will need to bring those buildings closer. I do agree with the first floor. Don't get me wrong, I do agree. I wouldn't want my bedroom windows to be on that side either. But maybe there is some kind of hallway or something like that that can be. It's just a suggestion. It's just a suggestion, not what it says.
Okay,
Other
thank
than
you.
that, I like the way the building looks.
Anyone else?
And I brought it up too, basically because it's included in our comprehensive plan. I think you have a valid point that you made about the buffer from Wheeling Road, and I do agree with that. But I felt as though I needed to suggest and bring that up just because it is part of the comprehensive plan. Thank you.
And I think that was more for retail and commercial to hide the parking lots in the back. Am I right, Marcy?
Yeah, we'll take the PC comments and we'll work with SIG on it.
Okay. Okay, one more time around. Anybody have anything to add? All right, gentlemen, thank you for the presentation. And
Thank you very much.
And we'll see you soon.
Thanks a lot.
Sounds great. We appreciate your time tonight. Have a good one, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
All right, next we have approval of minutes of the regular meeting for December 16th, 2020, including findings of fact for docket numbers 2020-25, 2020-35, and 2020-36. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
You get that, Mr. Secretary?
Yes. Commissioner Yednak.
Yes.
Commissioner Sprague is a yes. Commissioner Blanova.
Yes.
Commissioner Berkey.
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson.
Yes.
Commissioner Malik.
Yes.
Chairman Johnson.
Yes. Other business, let's start with Ms. Nyes. Anything coming up?
The next PC meeting on the 27th is going to be a PC training meeting.
Oh.
So there'll be no other items on the agenda. So if you have any items you would like us to cover or any specific questions, if you could get those to me soon, then we can make sure we can include them in our discussion at the next meeting, which is the 27th, and that'll just be a training meeting.
Very good. I was going to ask about that because we've got some new folks.
Yep.
Commissioner Sprague, any other business?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I do have a couple things here. After reviewing the comprehensive plan and that straightforward concept that we were talking about, I was wondering if staff needs to look at our codes for setbacks with that and, being involved with the straightforward buildings. I was going to mention this to Director Clicker if he was with us, but he's not here, so I wanted to bring that up. Maybe it could be forwarded to him, I don't know.
Well, we are going to be doing a deep dive of the code, but a lot of the bigger developments that come through as PUDs and end up, they can deal with the front setbacks at that point. But I could bring that up to him.
Yeah, I was just curious if it needed to be looked at with that being part of the comprehensive plan, you know. I don't know if that will conflict with our setbacks and how many feet it is.
Okay.
The other thing I had was, I heard a comment at the board meeting, and it kind of raised my eyebrows a little bit. And I just wanted to make a little comment of my own about our codes. Codes are needed in our town or village, and all the towns and villages around us have them. And without them, there'd be a lot of chaos and inconsistencies in our towns. They're there to keep things safe and look attractive, and to help attract new businesses and residents to our town. If there's a code that seems too harsh or someone disagrees with, they have every right to enter a comment for the board to review, and they will gladly do that. So don't hate on our codes. All right, that's all I have. Thank you.
All right. Commissioner Blanova.
It's nothing, thank you. I look forward to next meeting.
Commissioner Berkey.
Nothing for me, thank you.
Commissioner Thompson. Commissioner Thompson.
Nothing for me, thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Yednick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have a topic that I was going to ask when we talked about training. I wondered if you could put on the agenda, if we could talk about when we get into colors and paints and things. I remember a few months ago, I was talking about the coloring on that payday loan store or the auto loan store, and I was told at that meeting that, you know, we shouldn't get into colors and it wasn't our role. But then the last meeting that we talked about the marijuana dispensary, we really dove way deep in the woods on colors. So maybe if you could tell us when we can talk about colors, when we can't, or what the boundaries are, I would really appreciate some training on that. The other topic I had is I was wondering if I could do a shout out to one of our new businesses. Is that allowed?
Sure.
Okay. All right, yeah, I took a tour of Waggles, the doggy daycare, about a week or so ago, and that is really a nice facility. If anybody from the community is listening, take a look, go over there. They really got they spent a lot of money. They've got central vacuum and central disinfectant system throughout the whole building. Inside is real nice. They're doing their staff, trying to get all up-trained staff, a lot of animal background, so it was really nice. And he did a nice job showing me around. So that's all open for business now if anybody's looking for dog daycare. And that was all I had. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioner Malik.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Nothing from me today.
All right. Well, it's been a few weeks since we got together, but I noticed recently that the house on Valley Stream has been demolished. The lot is almost empty. It looks very small, too. I don't know. When they rebuild that house, it's going to be tighter than it is, but I think that's all I had. Mallory, anything from the legal department?
No, just I'd echo Marcy's comments that I wrote down yours, Commissioner Yednick, but if anyone thinks of anything else, feel free to email Marcy and we'll work together to make sure that we address all your questions at the training. So if you have any other also like specific ones, feel free. Otherwise we'll do some like general examples.
Very good. All right. If there's nothing else, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Sprague is a yes. Commissioner Yednek?
Yes.
Commissioner Blanova?
Yes.
Commissioner Berkey?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes.
Commissioner Malik?
Yes.
Chairman Johnson?
Yes. Thank you all. We are adjourned.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good
Good
night.
night, everyone.
And Happy New Year.
Night.
Happy New Year.